Hi everybody, I'm Johnny White, and I'd like to introduce Michael St. John's Entertainment World. Enjoy!
Ruta, when you first came to Hollywood, I know when I first came to Hollywood, I was shocked. And I came because I saw people doing things and they didn't do back in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia, you know. And so I came to go to school. Now, when you came into Hollywood, you came for a different purpose, I know.
Nothing was a shock to me. It was all magical to me. Yeah. Because you have to remember that I grew up in Montreal, Canada, where you had to be 16 years old to go to the movies. There had been a great big huge fire, children got trampled, the law was passed, 16 and younger, no movies. Really? On occasion, they would sort of vary that edict, and we could go see Bambi or something special. Yeah. But coming to California, which was because my mother thought that I was Lithuania's answer to Shirley Temple. Yes. You know, they wanted to get out of the cold climate of Montreal. My mother and father were born, raised, and married in Lithuania. They decided they wanted to be in America, where everybody knew the streets were paved with gold. They couldn't get into the United States because the quotas were closed. Right. And so they could get into Canada, Mexico, Australia, South America, you know. Well, Canada was the closest to the U.S. So my father got a job working in the wheat fields of Saskatchewan for a year, worked off his debt, and then brought my mother over, and eventually I was born there. And the kindergarten teacher, to whom I will be forever grateful, Mrs. Jackson, my kindergarten teacher, told my mom, give your daughter lessons, music lessons, dancing lessons, singing lessons, whatever it is, because she's very different from the rest of the children in my classes. And my mother followed her advice, thank God. I hated lessons. I loved performing, but I hated lessons, you know. But anyway, my father thought, no, California is cold. Let's see if we can get a visa to come to the United States, which was difficult after the war, because all the Lithuanian visas had gone to displaced persons all over the world. Yeah. And so we prayed on that one a lot. And my father thought, well, Florida is closer and it's warm and it's closer to Montreal. But my mother had in mind California, because that's where the movies were made. Hello. She didn't know theater. She didn't know the stage. About films, but she saw the movies, and if Shirley Temple could do it, Ruta could do it, you know. So we, thank God, came to California, and I thank the Monsignor who ran the Lithuanian Catholic parish here, because he invited my folks to come and visit him. And they came, and of course in 1947, what wasn't to love about California? Palm trees swaying, flowers blooming, they were up to their asses in snow in Montreal, you know. So we came to California, and this is where I grew up. And this is where I grew up when California was a place where you didn't lock your car, the keys stayed in the car, we all had tops down on the car. None of the stuff that we're dealing with now.
Was this in the 50s?
This was the late 40s. This was 49 and 50 and the early 50s. Yes. And it was so different. So I didn't see weird stuff. I only saw good stuff. Yes. And I was first going to a junior high when I first came to California, over at the other end of Hollywood, and then went to Immaculate Heart High School, and then finally escaped the nuns and went to Hollywood High. And
Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney, and all the gang went there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was preceded by Carol Burnett and Nanette Fabre, some of these wonderful people. And it was great because, and the only reason I could do that was because there was a school bus that came up Laurel Canyon and picked us up. And I used to ride on the school bus with the Nelson kids, Ricky Nelson and David Nelson, and we'd kid on the bus every day. And so this was miraculous for me. And I have to tell you that my parochial school education in Canada was tougher than high school here. And so I coasted through high school with picking up very little, but doing a lot of theater. The theater arts department was wonderful. My dance teachers were wonderful. They let me produce shows and direct shows and be in shows. And so I'm very, very grateful to Hollywood High for everything it gave me.
But you know something, I became aware of you, I think when your grandmother, it would hit the headlines. Ruta Lee had fought and worked and made an agreement with the Russians or something like that to get her grandmother from Lithuania back to this country, and everybody was talking about it, And I was impressed and terribly moved because I was thinking, my grandma, she wasn't.
I know how close.
You know how that feeling is,
Yes.
So it took some time for you to accomplish that, but you did it.
Well, this is why one of the reasons I am so adamant an anti-communist. I know what communism did firsthand to my family. I know how these poor peasant farmers who didn't have a pot to pee in were taken from their land, that little plot postage stamp that they owned, and shipped off to Siberia. Why? Because they wanted to repatriate the Baltic countries and Poland with Russians, which is fine. Russian people are very good people. They didn't want to be moved any more than our Lithuanians wanted to go. My grandfather died en route to Siberia. His legs were frozen on the cattle car that they were being deported on. He died there. My grandmother spent the rest of many years, 12 years, in the Gulag up in Siberia. And so I don't want to hear anybody talk about socialism, which leads us. The next step is communism. And so my family was deported, as you know, to Siberia. And I had one remaining living grandparent. This is the grandmother. And we tried to get her out of Siberia. That didn't work. Eventually, they were permitted to either stay in Siberia or go back to Lithuania. Mind you, this 90-year-old woman hitchhiked across Siberia on lumber wagons, on carpet trucks, on anything. To try and find the rest of her family that had also been deported.
What a story that is.
I'm going to do a book on it.
You should.
And they were permitted to go back to Lithuania. We always sent packages as long as we were permitted. They would allow you to send 1 pound of butter, or wouldn't be butter, but it would be lard. 1 pound of coffee, 1 pound of sugar, 1 pound of chocolate, And at first they'd let you send old clothes. Well, of course, we collected our own and from everybody else and would make up these packages, 45 pounds at most. And my mother, God love her, would take $100 bills, $20 bills, and roll them up very, very tiny and sew them into the seams of jackets.
Extraordinary.
And everything, of course, they looked at every letter, and everything was marked out with black pen that was coming and going. And so my mother, months later would say, shoulder pads are popular in America, but not where you are. Maybe you should take them out. And somehow the message would get through, and it sustained them in Siberia, and then when they got back to Lithuania. And so I got a letter from my grandmother. She didn't read or write. She only went to the 3rd grade, you know. But my aunt was writing for her, thanking us for the clothes we had sent, thanking us for the things to be laid out in. This was very important to a Lithuanian lady. A babushka to put on, a black skirt, a black blouse or a white blouse, and a white apron. Very important to be laid out in.
It's extraordinary, really.
Anyway, she was thanking us and saying that the doctor had told her she was going to die and to prepare. Well, I got pissed as hell. I thought, my one remaining grandparent. My mother was in a spate of tears. I went out with friends that night, and the more wine we drank, the more evident it became that I should really do something. And beyond trying as I had, I tried for 12 years to sending Vizovs to get her out. I picked up the phone in a slightly drunken stupor in the middle of the night, which would be business hours in Moscow, and said to the operator, "Thank God for person-to-person calls in those days." The young kids wouldn't know what that means, person-to-person calls, but if it was person-to-person, you paid twice as much, but you didn't pay unless you got your party.
You're right.
And so I placed a call to Nikita Khrushchev, the Kremlin, Moscow, USSR, and the telephone operator said to me, "How do you spell Khrushchev?" Well, who the hell remembered how to spell Khrushchev? Anyway, long story short, many calls back and forth that he's not available, etc. I got a call saying, "Mr. Khrushchev no speak it English. You speak it with Vorisho interpreter for Mr. Khrushchev." What have I got to lose? Okay.
Boy.
So Mr. Vodishov said, "Oh, we know all about you here. We see your films, Miss Lee. We would love to have you travel in the Soviet Union. Why don't you speak to your congressman about it?" And by now I am sobering up and I'm hungover. And I said, "What the hell does my congressman or senator have to do with my traveling in your country? This is not a political matter. This is a matter of the heart. Will you let me come? And will you let me bring my parents?" Now you have to understand that the State Department had told me, don't take your parents to the Soviet Union because they could be considered primary citizens of the Soviet and detained. I thought, no, God is not going to be that cruel. So he said, "Present yourself again." I had 15 calls to the Russian embassy in Washington. He said, "Present yourself again to the Russian embassy." And I thought, oh, hell. I've already spoken to the gardener, the dishwasher, the third maid from the left. You know, they're just trying to get rid of me again. Well, the hotlines must have been buzzing between Moscow and the embassy in Washington, because when I called, I was immediately connected to the first secretary. And the first secretary was Lithuanian, and his name was Zenkevičius. And I'm fairly fluent in Lithuanian. So we had a good long conversation, and longer story short, 2 days later, we were on a Pan Am flight to Moscow and then to Lithuania. And I took my parents for the first time in 35 years since they'd left. And it was a big reunion and a fabulous, fabulous experience. But I loathed being in any communist country. Everything smells of disinfectant. Everything is niet, niet, niet. No, no,
No,
no.
no.
You can't. You open a menu and you say, "I'll have that," and
Yeah.
they, no, we don't have that.
You don't say da.
Yeah. Then you turn the page to 13 down there. I'll
Yeah.
have that. No, we don't have that either. So I just don't want any part
Right.
of communism in our country because we know what it is to breathe and live
Yes,
free.
exactly. You know, when did you discover that, or had a feeling that your career was beginning to take off? Was it because of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, or was it the film with Charles Laughton, which I love, was in black and white, as a matter of fact, and that scene with you in the back, like in the last, marvelous, and it's still in my mind. Your image, because you had darker hair then.
There's a story that goes behind this.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you about that. Well, I never felt like, gee, my career is taking off. Things happen, and when you're young and stupid, you don't realize how blessed and lucky you are.
Got that right.
And you forget to enjoy and savor every single second because you never know how long it's going to last. But I still haven't made it. I'm still waiting for that. I always said I want one husband and 10 Academy Awards. Well, I've got the one husband, but I haven't got one friggin' Academy Award. Lots of other awards, lots of wonderful kudos for work that I've done, but that's great.
Yeah.
But there's a story behind Witness for the Prosecution.
Yeah.
And
Cornel Well was in it too.
no.
Oh,
Go ahead, yes.
I can see his picture. Oh, God.
Sure. Hang on. Now I'm forgetting. You've scared the hell out of me too. Oh, please.
Beautiful actor.
Oh, gorgeous man.
Yeah.
I'll think of
Yes,
his name.
and we'll
Anyway,
both say probably at the same time.
So now, the whole Witness for the Prosecution came about thanks to Frank Sinatra. Now, this is an interesting story. I was invited by a man who hosted a lot of people in town. Scotty Rubin was his name, to the opening at the Macombo when Frank Sinatra was going to be playing.
Yeah.
The Macombo was hitting hard times. Television was ruling the world. Nightclubs were no longer the big deal. And Frank went to the lady that owned it, Mary Morrison, and said, I'm going to help you. I'll come in and play a week. Dean will come in and play a week. Victor Moan will come in and play a week. And I was invited to the opening of Frank Sinatra. Now, I had never seen Frank Sinatra perform. I had all his albums, and I had all his beautiful unrequited love songs.
Yeah.
But I'd never seen him live. Well, now you know better than anybody that there is nobody that has ever entertained like Frank Sinatra.
Exactly.
He is mesmerizing.
Exactly.
And there we are sitting at a table, about 12 people, hosted by Scotty Rubin. And I'm sitting there with my mouth wide open, just, as I said, mesmerized by the wonder of this man. He was on a small dais, the size of a 3-foot table, I think, because his orchestra filled up the whole room, the stage.
Yes.
A small stage at nightclubs.
Yes.
So some of the audience was around behind him as he was performing.
Okay.
And a message came over to Scotty, who was the host of our table, and said, would you ask Miss Lee, or bring Miss Lee to my table? I would like to meet her. And so we go over, and the gentleman says, my name is Arthur Hornblow Jr. I am a producer, and I am producing a film right now, directed by Billy Wilder, and I've just given you a very unique screen test. I sat here watching you watch Frank Sinatra, and I think you'd be a very good love interest in our film called Witness for the Prosecution.
Oh boy, oh boy.
So, he said, would you come in and meet Billy Wilder? And I said, is tomorrow too soon? And so I went in, they put me on film for a few minutes. Marlene Dietrich got one load of the blonde hair and said, "Nick Nine, forget it."
That's not good.
And I became a brunette overnight.
Ah,
and that's why
how you got the
there
dark
I was
hair.
with the dark hair. Now, great experience working with all these fabulous people.
Exactly.
And fade out, fade in, a year goes by. Frank Sinatra likes nothing more, nothing better than having dinner at home, big Italian dinner, a lot of buddies in to watch a current movie.
Yeah.
What do they run that night but Witness for the Prosecution? And he says to the producer friend of his that he's working with, Howard Koch, for whom I'd worked many times at Warner Brothers.
Great guy. Yes.
One of the best.
Yes.
And he said, "You know, I've been watching this Ruta Lee chick on television a lot. What do you think about putting her in one of these upcoming movies that we're going to do?" And Howard said, "You couldn't have picked a better girl. She's one of my favorites." That's how I got to be the leading lady to Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford, and the Crosby Boys, and all the gang in Sergeants 3.
Isn't that something?
Isn't that amazing?
What really happened when television became something rather important for all the actors in our town? I realized it happened to me because I was on a lot of little series myself, at MGM. But I know you were constantly working. You know, your name was always out there, Ruta Lee, Ruta Lee, Ruta Lee. Or you were a game show host, or you're doing something like that, or you're sitting on a panel. You were constantly working where other people were sitting around waiting for their agents to call them. So you must have had something rather special.
Well, yes, I did have something special in that each studio where I worked, Michael, had their version of what they thought I did.
Right.
In some of them, I was the cute young debutante. In another one, I was the hooker. In another one, I was the cowgirl, you know.
Yes.
And so I worked a lot. And one of the big mistakes that I've made, and Lord knows we all make them.
Hello.
And the one that sits out with me is that I was asked by Warner Brothers to be under contract there. And I thought, why would I want to be under contract at $300 a week when I'm earning $600 or $750 a week guesting on Maverick, on Sugarfoot, on Cheyenne, on all of those shows, you know? Well, I was stupid because when you're at a studio, you have a machine behind you.
The publicity.
The publicity is worth it all.
Exactly.
And when you don't have a studio behind you, then you have to pay
all
for
that.
the PR and to get to everything and take care of that.
Right.
And you have to toot your own horn all the time.
Exactly.
And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You know, not graciously anyway.
Right.
So that was a big mistake I made. But Lord, I was on everything. And I was so lucky because I'd get hired again and again, which really worked nicely. And of course, I could do a lot of accents.
Yes.
So, you know.
How about the theater? Did you do a lot of theater at that time?
Yeah. Not a lot.
But especially if you were on television.
Yeah, I did. I did a big musical, you know, downtown, which was lovely. I did Showboat with
which part did you play?
Eddie Foy Jr.
With Eddie Foy, I sang for Eddie.
Oh,
he had a club. He had a club.
Really?
In Santa Monica.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a marvelous experience, you know, to play a civic light opera, you know, here in San Francisco. And then when all the big stars from the movies started to work in television, which before they wouldn't deign to, you know, it was that other thing.
Yeah, that other thing.
The small screen.
Right.
I found my own jobs becoming taken by much bigger stars, bigger names than I am. And so then I started going out around the country on in shows.
Yes.
And I did a lot of theaters and a lot of dinner theaters. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Which character did you play in Showboat? Because I did show. I sang in Old Man River about several years ago.
You're much too young to do Old Man River.
No, I wasn't.
Well, you have a nice deep voice, so that works. Okay. All right. Well, I was Ellie, the song,
Are you
the dance
Ellie?
girl.
Oh, yeah.
The show girl, the dance girl.
Yes.
Life upon the wicked stage ain't ever what a girl
Da,
supposes.
That's why when you did my TV pilot, which is your show, what's our show called? Studio House.
Studio House. And I'm hoping
yeah.
that you're still going to do something.
Oh, I'm praying with all my heart, because when you walked in there and did that dance up the stairs and you raised your legs, I say, shit, man. She can raise her legs. And I can barely raise mine. Hello.
Well,
you're marvelous. Everybody said,
it would be fun to be that outrageous character with all the outrageous characters that you had.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it needs, but we'll just keep praying on it.
Yeah, so you know me, I'm a hustler.
Yeah.
That's one darn
It's
reality.
a good show. It's a darn good show.
And everyone loves it when they see it. They laugh, and the characters we have, they were all pros.
Yeah.
Deborah Wilson from, and all those guys from Mad TV and things like that. So I am very lucky, first of all, to have you always there, because on any good thing happened in my career, you've always been somehow connected.
Well, we've been friends for a lot of years,
yes.
And I'll be damned if I can remember where we met. I have no idea, nor do I care.
Rogers and Cowan was handling you.
Oh! On that. Writes down every and you have to reform everything.
Yeah.
When you're speaking to somebody, it's one thing. When you're writing the words, it's not the same unless you're watching this.
Yeah, because with my book Hollywood Through the Back Door, I just went through from the beginning to the end. When your time came in, I said, okay, Ruta came into this, and Debbie, whatever, they don't know each other. Rogers and Cowan, I think you knew someone over there, or they were working for you. Oh, it was your wedding that you were planning or something, and they were gathering people and making sure that the important people were at the wedding, etc. Oh, the reception.
The reception
at the Playboy.
At the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah, exactly. So the gal there says, Michael, I think you should go because it's going to be exciting. Cornell Wilde's going to be there. Jaja's going to be there. I said, Jaja wants to kill me because her husband's staying with me because she had kicked him out. She threatened to kill him with a lion or a tiger in her house. She says, "You don't get out of his house. I'm upset."
My!
So she found that he was with me. And so when I went to your reception, she says, "I don't want to talk to you."
Oh, that's amazing.
She says, "I know where he is. You're hiding him in your house."
That's amazing.
I said, really? I was wondering how she. But then Bobby Benton was singing at your reception.
Yes.
And a lot of the stars were there. It was a house full of stars. A producer. It was wonderful up there.
450 Hollywood people were there.
Oh, it was quite a time.
Creme de la creme.
Oh, the creme de la creme. Yeah.
And we said hello to everybody coming in.
It was
and
beautiful.
We were backed by violins, Murray Corda's violins.
In a tent.
And the tent and the chandeliers with the doves, and it was absolutely extraordinary. And by the time we said hello to 450 guests, some of them were leaving, so we said goodbye to 450 guests. And Webb and I never had a chance to enjoy our dinner or a glass of wine, and we came home and had peanut butter sandwiches.
Well, I'll tell you, with all those people there, all those fantastic names, they were really impressive, especially a little guy like me, really coming out in Hollywood. And the ambiance was so calm and dignified, and people enjoyed themselves. They were themselves, but it was you knew you were at someplace special.
It was lovely. It was a black tie
I shall never forget
event.
it as long as I live.
I won't either.
And I was telling Webb he looked quite dapper. You know, he was charming, handsome,
Yes.
and he's moved with the rhythm of the whole thing. You was typically Ruta, you know.
I'm
It was-
bouncing off the walls.
Right, exactly.
God bless him.
Oh,
he
gosh.
he is the best husband. He is very calm by nature, and allows me to do whatever needs to be done.
and what makes you
and you
happy.
know, as a performer
Yes.
who loves her audiences
Yes.
and wants to say hello to anybody that wants to
You
say
proved
hello
that in
to
Palm
me.
Springs when I was down there.
Oh yeah, he's very patient
Yeah.
about waiting for the lines,
Yeah.
you know, for autographs after
Yeah,
after
yeah.
a show or whatever. And if someone is very shy about coming up, he'll come to me and
Yes.
he'll say, "There's a couple back over there that were a
Right.
little too shy to come up to you. That you'll dazzle them if you say hello."
Because I called you
So-
one time for something, and Webb called me back. He said, "I want to thank you, Michael, for being my wife's friend, being always there." See, and
Well, he knew you'd take care of me wherever I was.
With my big mouth, yes, of course. You know, but I was very moved by that because he doesn't do that. His Webb, you know.
That's
but
so
he
nice.
cared enough that he knew I cared about you. That he called me and said thank you, and I shall never forget. You don't forget
He's
nice things like that.
a
really.
precious man.
Exactly.
I met him, you know, doing a good deed.
Yeah.
As you know, the Thalians I've
Yes.
been involved with now for 60 years, for
Yes,
God's
exactly.
sake. Not quite 60, 50, 55. I had been asked by the LPGA to be their guest star at either the opening or the closing or something of their games and ceremonies in, where was it? Florida. I'm doing a blank on exactly where. And I was doing a show in Dallas, and I promised them an extra performance at the end of the week. They wanted me to play an extra week.
Yeah.
And I had booked this for the Thalians
Yeah.
because they were going to give me $10,000, which seemed like a lot of money to
Yeah,
me in
yeah.
the 70s. You know,
Yes,
in the early
exactly. It was.
for the Thalians.
Yeah.
And I said, I've got to go. So I can't play the week. And they said, well, you give us an extra show at the end of the week, and that'll make up for it. Take the day off, Monday off.
Yes.
Okay. I fly to to Miami, and I get picked up in a private plane and flown over to Naples. That's where it was, Naples, Florida. In a little plane, and you know, I put on the eyelashes and the hairpiece and get out the feather boas,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, right.
and ride in the parade with the mayor, and then do the dinner that evening.
Right.
And the next day, I have to do a show, remember, that night. So I get up early in the morning, no makeup, babushka glasses, carrying a fur coat because it's February and it's cold in Dallas but hot in Naples, Florida. Run across the tarmac when the little plane drops me off, go to the American Airlines counter, and they took pity on me and said, Miss Lee, we'll pre-board you as soon as the flight is cleaned up. It's a turnaround flight from Dallas. Fine. I'm leaning on the counter like this, and I look down the hall, and I see a great pair of Gucci loafers coming towards me. And I look up a little further, nice slacks with a crease in them. Look up a little further, double-breasted blazer with gold buttons. Look up a little further, and this wonderful craggy face with the silver hair. And I thought, be still my heart. And he kept coming and coming and coming and went right past me and down the hall that away. And I thought, oh, shucks. Ships that pass in the night.
Yeah.
They pre-board me, and I'm shoving all my stuff under the seat. I've asked for a pillow. I've asked for a glass of water.
Yeah.
I take a Dristan because I hadn't been feeling well. And all my stuff is piled up in this seat. I always ask for the bulkhead seat.
Yeah.
And I look down, and the same pair of shoes are standing there.
Yeah.
And he looks at the seat, and he says, oh, is this seat taken? And I said, for the last time in my life, no. And he said, hello, my name is Webb Lowe. And I said, hello, my name is Ruta Lee. and we should be married because then I'll be Ruta Lee Low.
Oh,
and we
God.
could open a Chinese laundry. Well, he's pissed as hell. We're
Yeah.
41 years married and we
Yeah.
don't have a laundry.
It's been that long, 41 years.
41
huh?
years.
My God, it tells you how old I am.
Well, it tells you how old I am.
Ruta, what was the most, other than being meeting Webb, etc., what was the most moving, meaningful moment in your life? I mean, you had many, but which one really made a difference in how you felt and considered yourself and other things around you?
Boy, there are so many precious, beautiful
I know you've had so many, but
moments.
maybe
you
one
know.
that really hit hard here.
One of those precious moments was, of course, I did the Tonight Show many times.
Yeah, I know that.
Guested on it
Yeah.
a lot. But I think one of the most precious moments was when I had my little grandmother that I brought over.
Oh, yeah.
from
They hit the
Lithuania.
headlines on TV and news and
Yes,
everything else.
and Johnny, they had followed my adventure like the
Yes.
Perils of Pauline
Yes.
on the Tonight Show, and we had her on the show.
I remember.
And she didn't speak a word of English, but she just sat there smiling at Johnny. And Johnny was starting to get kind of a little bit upset by the fact that she just kept looking at him and nodding and smiling, her toothless smile.
Oh.
And he said, what is
Yes.
she saying? And I
Yes.
said, Grandma, what are you thinking? And she said, tell him he's the sweetest flower that grows in the garden.
Oh, that's so
And
nice.
I thought, what fabulous bullshit my
Yeah.
grandmother knew how to spew.
She was
Isn't
Hollywood.
that wonderful?
Right, she's come to Hollywood.
So that was a precious moment for me.
Yes.
Another precious moment, again, involved Lithuania and my roots.
Yes.
Because I used to do so many Voice of America broadcasts.
Yes.
It's amazing that they let me into the Soviet Union when they did, because I was constantly doing Voice of America
Yeah,
broadcasts. And of course, in the Soviet Union in those days, you weren't allowed to have a shortwave radio, you
Right.
weren't allowed television, you weren't allowed anything that wasn't broadcast by the government. But anyway, I was awarded by the president of Free Lithuania.
Yes. Was this the last trip you went? 'Cause
Yeah,
you got
not the
another
last
award,
trip, the
'cause you
trip
got an award
before,
then,
about
too.
10 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
I was awarded, it was the same year that I got my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Now,
yeah.
that meant something to me, too.
Of course.
That was a tremendous moment for me. And then that same year, I went to Lithuania and was awarded the highest honors a private citizen
Yes.
can get from
Yes.
the country of Lithuania.
Yes.
So it was quite a year
It was
for
a
me.
moving thing.
Quite
Yeah,
a year
yeah.
for me.
When did your grandmother pass?
2 years, 2 months, and 2 days after she arrived.
Isn't that something?
She walked
That's extraordinary.
on the carpets in our house
Yeah.
and thought, no, they're supposed to be hanging on a wall.
Yes.
You know, instead of on the floor. I was off doing a show in I can't remember where now.
Texas?
And no, further east.
Yes.
And had come in to New York City to do the Tonight Show.
Yes.
And I was in my dressing room, and the producer, God love him, came into me and said, Ruta, I have some terrible news for you. We just heard from your home in LA. Your grandmother has passed away. Do you think you want to do the show? And I said, oh, you bet I do. You're publicizing her
Yeah.
and letting America know about my grandmother and help me get her.
Yeah.
Help me convince the Soviets to let her go.
Right.
You know, and bring her to America. And I think that I want to share this evening, you
Yes.
know, with everybody. So it was, again, a very touching time and moment for me, you know.
Yes.
And she was quite amazing.
Yes.
This little grandmother of mine had always wanted to come to the United States. And she, when we got off the plane, this was in the 60s, 64, I believe. they didn't have the jetways. You had the stairs coming down
Right.
to the tarmac. She stepped gingerly down the stairs, dropped to her 95-year-old knees, and kissed the ground she walked on.
That's moving. I'm sorry.
And she said, "Hello, America."
Oh, stop it, Ruta. You're upsetting me. Woo! That's something else.
She knew what it was
Yeah.
to live through the wars
Yeah.
being between Germany and Russia for the First World
Yeah,
War.
yeah.
Then to have the communists take
yes,
over
Yeah.
and ruin her family
Yeah, yeah.
and kill
Yeah.
so many of her children.
Right. Right.
She knew what it was, and
Yeah.
that this is a blessed ground
Yeah,
we're on,
yeah.
and we must never let that happen to
Right.
this country.
Exactly. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I see. I understand.
Sorry.
No, I empathize with you terribly. Because I've experienced some things with because of the history of this country, dealing with my my grandmother.
Your family.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. And I was Tony Holt in our lives then, or in your life then.
Yeah, oh, she was always in my life.
Yeah.
We hadn't started doing the shows
In Palm
then.
Springs, but you did something in Palm Springs.
We did
which-
Palm
which, um,
Springs, but
yeah.
we also did 5 years of Talk of the Town, which are wonderful shows,
Yeah.
and those are shows that I really need.
Well, you shot them in Palm Springs.
Just
did?
some.
Some of them, because
Yeah,
I
the
watched
rest
a few of
were
them.
all here. I shot them in London. We shot them in
Yeah.
New York.
Yeah.
We shot them everywhere. But they're fabulous shows with the greatest stars in the world that I have on film, and I think we should resurrect that show.
Well, you two are like sisters
in some way.
Because I was with Tony for years.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and I babysat her boys, David and the other one.
Yes.
What was the other one's name?
You had to ask me that.
Brad or
No,
Greg
no.
or
I'll call you at 2 a.m. and
Please.
tell you. He's still living down somewhere in the
Yeah,
Springs
yeah,
area,
yeah.
as is David. David, unfortunately, had a terrible stroke.
He did.
Yes, and he did it to himself. He was fooling around with drugs.
Oh, he was.
And you know what happens, and I
Yeah.
warn everybody,
Yeah.
you think your body can
Yeah.
take it?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. He is now crippled
You're
terribly.
kidding.
No.
Well, see, David was a little hothead as a kid.
Yes.
And I used to take him off to school in Pasadena. And I said, I felt sorry for the people in Pasadena in the school because he wouldn't eat dinner one time, and I said, "You eat that spaghetti?" He says, "No." I said, "Eat that spaghetti." So Helen,
Yeah, her mama. Yeah.
mom, she sat there looking at me. What is Michael going to do to my grandson? I put his head in that spaghetti. I said, "Now you eat
Good
it."
for you.
Yes, and their eyes open up. Michael's greatest black boy is going to beat my toy right in front of me. But we loved each other.
Yeah.
And Tony trusted me.
Yeah.
And she used to take baths, and she says, "Coming up, Mike." She didn't know you had to wear anything
Yeah.
but me. And I was sitting there, and she would talk and gossip about everybody in town.
Yeah.
It was marvelous when she was working for Playgirl magazine.
Yeah, she's a very good girl. She's living in Florida most of the time now.
She's good. Yeah, that's why I found
half
out.
of the year. Yeah,
No,
she
is it
lives-
because of her husband or what?
no, because of tax reasons.
The tax reason. Tony.
Let's face it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she's very savvy when it comes to finances.
Oh,
and,
yes, I know. I think it's like she said this. So he calls and says, "Rita, I want you to meet somebody. His name is Michael St. John. He's a great little guy. We've known him all his life because Peter and I were buddies, And so she says, "Ask him to come over."